From the Flint Hills Writing Project, this is The Suggestion Box. I'm your host, Andrea Marshbank. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Keri Lauxman, who is an English teacher in the Kansas area, and I am incredibly thrilled to have the chance to speak with her. Keri was actually, is still teaching in the same building that I student taught at, which is really crazy because she is such a fantastic teacher, and I think back and I'm like, wow, I probably should have observed her as a student teacher, but I didn't. Time got in the way, things got in the way. We're all teachers, we understand, things get in the way. But this just kind of constantly reminds me that observation is one of the most powerful tools that we have. So if you're in a situation where there's a teacher you'd like to observe, I'd push you to do that. Go observe them, ask. Veteran teachers, student teachers, new teachers, go, ask, observe. But moving off of that little tirade there, Keri is phenomenal. She has been acclaimed with many, many, many awards. One of the most notable ones was the Kansas Master Teacher Award, in which Lawrence, Kansas actually had a Keri Lauxman Day in her honor, which is fantastic. And then outside of the award circuit, Keri is just a phenomenal person. She's a fantastic person to be around, and she is a great teacher. And today she's going to talk to us about two strategies. One might not be considered a strategy. One is kind of a life choice, and we'll get to that in a second, which is unique because normally here on the suggestion box, we usually stick to one idea and we get really deep down into that idea. So I'm really excited for you to hear this interview with her. She described her classroom as having a climate of innovation, and that really resonates with me and speaks to me, especially with the second strategy she's going to discuss with us today, which is personalized learning. She is a pioneer of giving students the choice to learn how and at the pace that they need to learn. And she talks about giving up this power that as a teacher, I think maybe some of us initially taught to have, as in her words, the sage on the stage, and letting that go so that students can do what they need to do at their own pace. It's really great. You got to stay tuned for that. But first, she talks about her secret weapon. Her weapon that is not a weapon, but is a puppy. It is a dog. She has a therapy dog, Roxy, in her classroom, and Roxy is a very, very good dog, first of all. And then second of all, is a great person to have in the classroom because she is a person, and you can tweet at me at the Suggestion Box Podcast. We can fight about it, but I would stand and say Roxy is a person. So she's going to talk about the process of how she decided to have how she decided to lead Roxy into the world of being a therapy dog for her classroom, and what's that is like. Because if your experiences as teachers out there are anything like mine in the high school setting, which is where Keri teaches, having a therapy dog is a little out of the norm. And even just for a classroom teacher to have a therapy dog versus a teacher who maybe is rotating around the school, or a paraprofessional bringing in their therapy dog, it's interesting. And so it's really exciting to hear her talk about the whole process with that. She has so many great ideas for us, and they're very applicable to all classrooms. I was really excited about this interview because I know sometimes we get really focused into content, and it can be harder to apply things to our classrooms, even though here at the Suggestion Box, we 100% believe you can apply anything that you really set your mind to any classroom. This one especially is very, you can do this anywhere and you're gonna reap a lot of benefits. So Stay tuned. We're so glad to have you. Thanks for being here. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Keri. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And just to start with Roxy, because that's always at the forefront of my mind, is how can I put my dogs in my classroom? Because I have 2 dogs, neither of which are therapy dogs or suited for the classroom. But how did that process start for you?
Well, it's interesting. My husband and I just adopted this dog, and we put her into classes, just puppy classes, obedience classes, just to be a good house pet and family member. And through that process, the evaluators of those classes just kept encouraging us. This dog is spectacular. She has the right, demeanor and behavior to do something really spectacular. And so, especially since my husband and I are both teachers, we continued to be encouraged to take the next step. So we had her through the puppy class for 6 weeks, one night at a time, one night a week. And then the evaluator said, keep going. So after she turned a year, we put her into the dog class, and again, 1 night a week for 6 weeks we went, and again, just grooming her to become an obedient and decent house pet. After that, we really started being pushed to try what was next, and the AKC has a great certification called Canine Good Citizen, the CGC test, and dogs have to be just 1 year old to qualify, and we did ours through Petco here locally, and they have an evaluator there. So we took the next class, and at the end of that class, we were offered the chance to test for the CGC certification. So Roxy passed with flying colors, and she was then AKC CGC certified. With that, it simply means that she has kind of the seal of approval from AKC that she has, checked these boxes, and both the dog and the handler is certified then. It's kind of a partnership, certification that we were both in this together, and we have the right commands and she has the right behaviors to be considered certified at that level. Yeah. Now at that level, she's not school ready or, any other kind of service ready or approved. It's just sort of the very first step in that therapy training. So after CGC, then we connected with an organization called Therapy Dogs International, TDI. And there are other organizations as well, but that was the one that we chose. And TDI then had an evaluator in Wichita. So we connected with that evaluator, went through another series of classes, and then ultimately went down to Wichita for her big test. And it was a series of obstacles, just throwing things at her, noises and kind of, things that might be frightening or might, set a dog off. Some dogs, will react in different ways when startled or nervous. So just we're really creating sort of a chaotic and unusual situation, one after the other, for her in that afternoon to kind of see how she behaves. What's her go-to reaction? Things that she might encounter, say, if she were doing therapy work in a school or in a hospital or, in other situations where therapy dogs are welcome. So that was a fun afternoon, and she, again, passed with flying colors, and that was really her official therapy certification. Yes. So with that, she was ready to go into the classroom and into, nursing homes and hospitals and anywhere that therapy dogs are welcome.
Yeah. So you bring her to the classroom with you every day?
Yes.
Yes. And did you have to convince your administrators?
I did. It was a bit of a process. My administrators are super supportive of new ways to engage students and resources for teaching and learning. So they are always on board for those kinds of crazy ideas that I am bringing at them. This one was a little outside the box. Yes. Not that the district hasn't had therapy dogs, because we do. In fact, Lawrence High had a therapy dog about 10 years ago. Annie retired. So we'd even had one in this building, but it had been a very long time. And so I knew it would be a little bit of a process with new administrators at the time to kind of talk them through seeing this as I saw it as a real opportunity for teaching and learning. So knowing that they were open to my wild and crazy ideas, I went down just as Roxy was approaching the end of her certification process. I started the conversation with them and came in with this idea and some research to support it. And initially they were a little leery, not no, but let's see.
Yeah.
And they kind of sent me away with, let's think about that and circle back to this later. So I let it sit for a couple of months, and I accumulated more research and all kinds of color coding in my binder, the socio and emotional and physical benefits of therapy dogs. And came back about 3 months later and called another meeting, and they again listened to me. And I think they're getting closer, but not quite yet. And they said, let's circle back. So another 3 months or so went by, and I think finally at this point they were like, fine, she's not going to let this go. Whatever. So they did agree to it. They could see the benefits, and lots of our elementary and middle schools in the district have therapy dogs, so it's not an outrageous concept. It just hadn't been in the high schools for a long time. Yes. So anyways, after a lot of convincing, they agreed, and I always say that I don't think I'd be welcome back without Roxy at this point. She has become such a part of our tradition. And she's just such an awesome part of our day.
Yeah. Does she get a yearbook photo?
She does.
Yes.
She is hilarious in her pictures. She smiles. It's as if she totally knows she's having her picture taken. It's hysterical. I'll show you later. She does. She was actually this year that we just finished was actually her 4th year at Lawrence High. So she came in with that freshman class. So she was even part of this past year's graduation ceremony. So we had a student here in the sewing class make her a cap and gown. And she was at graduation. And, she's put in her 4 years, just like the students, and she provides an extraordinary service for teachers and for students. And she earned her spot. She'll be back as a super senior this year.
Yes. Oh man, someday we'll have to send her off to KU.
That's right.
That's awesome. I think that you mentioned that when you said like Roxy had all of the determining qualities. Well, I guess like after she has all her training, like how does she interact with students? How do they respond to her? What's her role in the classroom? Like kind of that give and take.
Absolutely. High school can be a stressful and anxious environment. Teens arrive daily from different home environments with various levels of consistency with family and friends, academic issues. Students come to us with a lot on their plates. And so I love the idea that Roxy is just unconditional love personified. She doesn't know if you were a jerk to your mom. She doesn't know if you did your homework. She doesn't know, she doesn't care, and she loves you unconditionally. And that unconditional love is something that just shouldn't be taken for granted. I think there are students who arrive here and don't necessarily feel that every day. And so there is a little piece of their day where they know that they are loved and they are recognized and they are important. And it's amazing to watch Roxy, how she changes people's body language in the hallways. People are anxious and stressed and nervous and depressed and dealing with life. Certainly our teens are experiencing a lot of those factors. And to see when students see her in the hallway, you can just see how they change. And, just to have that little piece in their life, when I see them, like, they smile and their body language changes, it's like, yep, that's why she's here. That's why she's here. She doesn't have any extraordinary skills. She is not a service dog. There's a real difference between service dog certification and therapy dog certifications. Those are totally different things. She does not have those amazing qualities and skills and training of to help a blind person or a person that deals with seizures. There are dogs that have extraordinary skills. Roxy, therapy is just love and kindness and just unconditional acceptance. So she really, I call her kind of a need-seeking missile. In the classroom, she is up every hour. When the bell rings and the kids come in the door for the hour, she does a little bit of a circling. She kind of circulates, and then she sort of sidles up with someone. And if you call her attention, if you want her to come to you, she will sit with you till the end of time. But it's those students who really love and having her around. But sometimes there are students who do not call for her attention, but yet she sidles up to them. And in that moment, she's telling me something. Right? And so I always know that once class gets started, if she's sitting with someone who's not calling for her attention, that I need to have a conversation with that student. What's going on today?
Right.
And it's amazing how often there really is something going on. So she really does sort of sense the energy. Once the class gets started, she mimics our energy, if we're up and busy and moving, she oftentimes is up and busy and moving with us. But if we kind of settle in and the class is quiet and everybody's focused, she takes her cue and she's in her kennel and takes a little nap.
Yeah.
Then a few minutes before the end of the hour, she has this sort of built-in clock that I didn't teach her, of course, she just has after 4 years of being in the classroom. So she's up then again, kind of doing her circling, checking things out and saying goodbye to people. And then we start over every hour. But she's just awesome. There have been some times where I've seen her do some extraordinary work as a therapy dog. I had a student a few years ago who was nearly nonverbal, very close to being nonverbal. And she would sit with him and he would just absolutely just feed off of her energy. And the two of them were just BFFs.
Yes.
And it got to a point where he would talk to her, which was groundbreaking.
Yes.
In a classroom, he was very anxious, and that environment was just not good for him. And man, he would sit with her and would talk to her. And just hearing his voice was spectacular.
Yeah.
He then ultimately started talking to me about his dog. So just that presence of Roxy gave him a sense of comfort to start expressing himself.
Yeah.
And it was pretty spectacular. You think of this funny little dog, and people think it's just bring your dog to work day, and I just it's not. She is just awesome.
Yeah.
So there are times like that where I really recognize that she is an extraordinary part of my classroom.
Yes. What a huge impact that Roxy has made. I think that would be, I'm sure there are a lot of teachers listening that would imagine that would be awesome for their classrooms. We've all had students who really struggled to connect with us or with other students for whatever reason, but there's so many of us that connect so easily with dogs.
That's absolutely true. They are so cool, and just to have someone in your corner all the time is pretty spectacular. One other benefit that I see from her is that she motivates attendance.
Oh, yes.
We have a park across the street, and students in the high school have cars, and they don't necessarily have to be here, right? There's times where after lunch, maybe they want to be at the park or at home playing video games. And I have had students say to me, I skipped my last class, but I'm here because I wanted to see Roxy.
Yes.
I don't care what the reason is. If you're here, I can teach you.
Yeah.
So whatever it takes to get you here, I'll take it.
Yes.
And if you come to my class because you want to see Roxy, bring it.
Yes.
That's great.
Oh, man. I love that, right? It doesn't matter. You can't be engaged unless you're here.
That's right. That's right.
Might as well. That's fantastic. Have you ever had any logistical issues of I'm wondering about, do you have students who have allergies or students who have maybe a fear of dogs? How does that go?
Yeah, in 4 years, it's not been an issue, a big issue. There have been, I can think of 2 cases. One was allergies and one was phobia. Some experience in the past with dogs that blocked her ability to be around Roxy. So in 4 years' time, there were 2 students who had some obstacles there. We have an awesome English department. There are 15 of us, so there is always a place for students. We can always change a schedule. It's never going to be an obstacle to someone taking a class. If Roxy's not your jam, then we can put you in a place where you can be successful.
Yeah.
So I always send out a letter to all the students' parents who are enrolled in my class a few weeks before the semester, just letting them know, this is who I am and this is who Roxy is and all of her certifications and so forth, the benefits of therapy dogs. And also, just a disclaimer at the bottom, if for whatever reason that situation won't work for you or your child, there are lots of other classrooms where we can make sure your student is successful.
Yeah.
So it's good in a big school. I'm not the only teacher of a certain subject. There are lots and lots of us. So it hasn't been a big obstacle.
That's awesome. That's fantastic to have all of those resources alongside you so that it doesn't have to be a concern. But 2 times over 4 years is very few times.
Yeah, it is very few. And, honestly, sometimes there are students outside of those 2 extreme cases where they say, "Oh, I'm just not a dog person," or but then through the course of a couple of weeks, they realize, oh, I can like dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs can be cool.
Right.
So it's also awesome to open up. It'd be terrifying and stressful to live your life thinking all dogs were that scary dog
Yes.
who harmed you once.
Right.
But then to have a positive experience with a dog changes how you go into your future.
Yeah.
That you recognize on a case by case decision. You know, it's not all dogs, but
Right.
some dogs. And I really work to teach students about her body language and what, you know, when her tail is up or down, or, you know, how she's behaving and how you can read animals to make sure that you're, you know, you're not putting yourself in a weird situation.
Yeah.
So it can be a great teaching tool as well, not just in the classroom, but, you know, for them, you know, going forward.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of leads into my next question, just to help solidify if we have any teachers out there who are interested in maybe starting the journey to having a therapy dog in their classroom, which are like, what are your classroom expectations for Roxy in regards to like her safety and their safety? Do you have, like, on the first day of school, a lot of us will like describe a syllabus or describe classroom rules? Do you establish any like boundaries at that point?
Absolutely. Roxy is so easygoing that there is not a whole lot of, you know, issues with she's not going to react badly. But I do, you know, make sure that students understand why she's here, that it's not just bring your dog to work day. It's not just every teacher can bring their dog, that she has gone through a rigorous training, as have I, and she, you know, possesses certain skills, and they're updated every year, and just to make sure that, you know, her certification is in line with all of the policies and expectations of Therapy Dogs International. But yeah, so I talked to them about, you know, the benefits that she brings to a classroom and why I thought this was a good idea, and how she's benefited teaching and learning in the past, and what I hope that she'll do in the future. So just really want them to get a sense of what's the point of this? Why is this crazy lady bring her dog to work? And you know, the basic rules are simple. Just, you know, she will always love you. Please love her in return. Please keep her safe. She will keep you safe. That kind of thing. You know, if you see her getting into something she shouldn't get into, let me know. You know, she likes to cruise the recycle bin. I call it the paper buffet.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you see her in there, if you've thrown some trash in there, and you know, let me know. Just keep me alert. She likes to show off by carrying things. She's a retriever, so she doesn't eat things, but she likes to carry things.
Yes.
So, you know, if she picks up something she shouldn't, she's showing off. Let me know. I'll reward her in a different way and make sure that she's safe.
Have you ever had like a class like lesson or something kind of turn the focus towards Roxy for a minute because of that?
Oh my gosh, it's hysterical. She is amazing for comic relief. We will be, you know, in the middle of something really serious, and the kids are, you know, in a, you know, timed writing, an essay or some kind of thing like this, and she will burp really loudly, like in the middle of class. It's hysterical. You know, like, you know, we all need a little laugh every now and again.
Yes.
She's fun. She's got, I do all kinds of little tricks and things with her, and the kids love it. So I'll teach them how to, like, get her to sit and stay, and commands and things, and they'll go home and try it with their dogs. And, you know, so she's just fun in addition to everything else that she brings. It just creates some levity in an environment that for some students is really stressful.
Yeah. So if you had to give some advice to teachers who are interested in maybe they have a dog that they think has the potential to be a therapy dog in the classroom, or they're interested in like maybe adopting a dog with kind of that end goal in mind, like what's your advice for them?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that any dog can be a therapy dog. Any breed, any age. You know, people always say to me, oh, my dog, I love that. I wish my dog could do that. Yeah. Just like the way that we teach our students, we teach our dogs. Right. And it's just a process of being really consistent, you know, following through, having really set expectations and commands, rewarding the right behaviors, just like we teach our kids, we teach our dogs. And I think people think, you know, that certain breeds can and can't do this work. Couldn't be further from the truth. It's a case by case, dog by dog, really handler by handler. The dog's behavior is more a result of our behavior than anything else, in the environment, and making sure that they're comfortable. So I say that any dog, any breed, any age can go through this process if you're willing to be consistent and take the steps that it requires. I would start with, you know, Petco is who we used. I suspect that there are lots of local companies that do this as well. That just the obedience training, just regular old, I want my dog to be nice at home training. Just get that consistency of rules as you as a handler, and the dog in a situation with other dogs, listening to you, looking to you, the handler, as the holder of all the information. You know, that dog handler relationship is really important, that you establish. I'm the boss and we're a team, but you look to me for direction. And so getting that in a class, you know, these businesses offer these classes all the time, puppy or adult dog, once a week, get into that routine. After doing some of those obedience kind of classes, then I'd look into that AKC, Good Canine Citizen Test. So that's really that first dip in the pond of starting the process to therapy. You get that Good Canine Citizen certification, and then contact either TDI or I think Loving Paws is another company here that does evaluations to take you to the full certification.
Yeah, that's really, I think that's super helpful information. I don't know that I've ever looked into it. It's really encouraging that you say that like all dogs can perhaps have the capabilities to do those things, because I believe you, because you are you know, like very experienced in this, and you have a lot of training in this, but I'm at home thinking of my dogs and I'm like, Pokey's kind of a monster, and then I'm like, well, is that because I'm kind of a monster? And I think the answer is yes, like it has to be.
Well, it's just like I don't believe that they're bad kids. I don't think they're bad dogs. I think it's about teaching and love and consistency and habits and rewarding the behavior that you want to see. And I think dogs, like kids, want to please. They want to be good.
Yeah.
They want to do right, you know? And, you know, some dogs will take more work than others, but certainly nobody is ruled out of the equation.
Yeah, well, I feel this is such an inspiring conversation about dogs that I just never quite thought I'd be having on the Suggestion Box. So thank you.
You're welcome. And, you know, another thing I'll add that, you know, for some people, therapy dog is out of the question because you're not a dog person. You don't have a dog. You don't want a dog, or your administration's just totally not into that. Another way that you can achieve some of those same, you know, results of the therapy dog, that, you know, unconditional love and calm that dogs can bring, is through practicing mindfulness. I know that you've had an episode where you focused on that. That's another strategy that I use on a regular basis, midweek mindfulness, I always call it. And, you know, it's just a chance to kind of center and focus and calm and relieve some of the stresses in life. So if therapy dog stress anxiety is not something you can introduce, anyone can add a moment of mindfulness into a routine.
So what does the midweek mindfulness moment look like in your classroom? What do you do for that?
On our block days, either Wednesday or Thursday, we have a little bit longer class period. And so that's why I choose that as the moment that we do it. And my students come to expect it, that I start class on those days with a little moment of mindfulness. And I teach them what that means, and we do a lot of background. And I really stress that there is nothing religious about me being mindful, that, you know, sometimes people equate meditation and mindfulness, and they start thinking, what's this crazy lady telling me? And this is
she already has a dog,
that she has really lost it. But I really take deliberate steps early on in the semester to explain mindfulness and just the quieting of stress and what ifs and worries and OMGs and to-do lists and all of that clouds our mind and kind of sabotages our success. And so they're aware of the benefits, and we just practice it. I have a lot of different techniques. I might just do 5 minutes of nature sounds, and I just ask students, you know, you can eyes open, eyes closed, lay down, sit down, whatever just get to a place where you can chill, try and clear your mind, try and let all of those what ifs and to-do lists settle to the bottom of the ocean, and just take 5 minutes to be still, to be present in the now, to let the past be the past, and let the future wait its turn. So maybe on the screen I might just put, you know, some sort of nature image or a video with some audio of nature sounds, and just for 5 minutes it's just chill. If I find a day, like, you know, it's really getting going, and, you know, you can feel the energy, like on a Friday you can feel like no one is listening, they're buzzing out of their chairs, you know, there's a lot of energy, I'll say, hey, you know what, we're going to be mindful for a minute, and you take 3 minutes, and man, it changes the rest of the period is like so much more focused. And the kids love it. If I get started on a Wednesday or Thursday without it, kids get real mad at me.
Oh, like, do they?
Yeah, like, hey, wait a minute. So they really look forward to it.
I was told that I could be mindful.
Yeah, you know, life is stressful, and they have a lot on their plate, so just 5 minutes to just let it all go is really cool. So that's a way to add the benefits, similar benefits of a therapy dog, without having to vacuum every 5 minutes.
Yes, I did kind of wonder about that, but I was like, I won't ask. I'm sure Roxy doesn't shed. She's perfection.
No, she does, and my custodians are lovely, and they don't give me a hard time about it at all.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, and if you're interested in more on mindfulness in a very similar tone to what Carrie was explaining, we do have an episode on that with Hannah Waldy, and I believe it is our 3rd episode. It's one of our first 5, so feel free to go check that out when you have some time. But yeah, I feel like there's like a whole plethora of things that could be said about Roxy, and it seems that we've landed on just her unbounding love for students really helps them feel relaxed and welcome in a space that, because school is oftentimes not a welcoming space for students as much as we'd like it to be for whatever reason. Going forward to our second topic at hand, this is something that you and I had spoken about, and you'd kind of described it as a way that you used to structure when you were lesson planning. And I like that a lot for the suggestion box, because as much as we kind of have been in the classroom with episodes so far of like, here are things that are going on and strategies and, different lessons, we haven't talked a lot about the prep work, which is for me anyways, it seems like the prep work is always like way larger than the actual implementation. Like, things get cut, students go slower or faster than I had anticipated, and I'm adapting to their needs. And so I'm really excited for you to share the strategy that's going to help us in that before process. So would you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, this is something I came up with. I'm a big fan of having structure, like creative structure. I like there to be a lot of fluidity and creativity in my classroom, but where students know exactly where we're headed and how we're going to get there. So I'm a little bit of, a little bit rock and roll, a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. I like creativity, but with a roadmap.
Yeah.
So LPAD is just this stupid acronym I came up with years ago, and it stands for Learn, Practice, Apply, Teach. Okay. So in a nutshell, it's just a structure I came up with a few years back to embrace personalized learning and focus on student choice when it comes to pace and path through a unit. I find the students are most successful when they have choices in how they learn, and also value the consistency and structure. They know what it's going to look like. Right. They know what to expect.
Yeah.
And so I want students to have options, but I also want them to know where we're going with it. So that's where I came up with this LPAD, a set structure for each unit, wherein students have choices in how long they work to master something and how they show that they have mastered it. So long story short, I used to use Blackboard, and I would have it for each unit, I would have a folder, a learn folder, a practice, apply, and teach folder in each of my units.
And just for any of our listeners who aren't familiar with Blackboard, it's just a learning management system very similar to Schoology or Canva or Edmodo or any of those where you push it out via folders.
Right.
So, Google Classroom.
That's right. And so we've gone one-to-one with MacBooks, and we're getting away from Blackboard. So now I'm using Google Classroom. So you could do this in any way you wanted to. In fact, right now, in focusing instead of on Blackboard but on Google Classroom, I'm using, I'm finding that a HyperDoc works really great for this, which just means a Google Doc where you have links to information.
Yes.
So you could set this up however you want to. But what I do is, say in the Learn folder, this is where every unit starts. Before we can use information or show off what we know, we have to just absorb. There are times where I just have to teach. I just have to push information, and kids are there, just gathering the facts. So here is, in this folder or in this link, I would have just different avenues for kids to start listening, reading. I post my notes or text pages or videos, either of me talking or another expert talking. So lots of different ways to go about just wrapping your head around the basic concepts.
Okay.
So the Learn folder is just info, read, listen, see, absorb. And students can then take as much or little as they want. For some students say, I just give me the text, just give me notes, I just want to read it. So they've got that option. Some kids just want to listen to it. And some kids want to do both. They want to see it, they want to listen to it, they want to read it. So in the Learn folder, kids can spend as much time as they want there till they feel like they've got a grip.
Do you feel like some kids even, like, depending on the day, like some might want to watch one day and want to read the other
Absolutely.
day?
Yeah. So I just like to give lots of different pathways to arrive at the same destination, but you can learn however you see fit. In the practice folder then, this is where, after they've consumed what they needed from the Learn documents. It's time to start practicing those skills and testing their knowledge, kind of getting in the driver's seat, start using it. So here I provide opportunities for practice through that material. So I might use things like Quizlet sets, vocabulary, online flashcards where they can kind of match things up and they're starting to make connections with the things that they learned. Now they're practicing those. So Quizlet sets can be great. Quizlet has flashcards as well as practice tests and matching games. It's all free. Quizlet.com is awesome. I might also use Quizzes. This is another free website, Quizizz. Okay. That's how you spell it. Quizzes. Quizizz. And this is multiple choice practice quiz. You can use this for real quizzes. You can use this for practice. Quizzes is awesome. But I could just put together, based on whatever I wanted them to learn, some quick practice tests. Some kids don't want to be on screen, and I like to have lots of options. So in this practice folder, I might also have a paper quiz, paper flashcards where they could match them up in the room, play it like a game, do whatever they need. Some prefer more of a tactile experience.
Right.
So in the practice phase, get in there, play around with it, start making sense of what you've learned.
Yeah.
Some students spend a lot of time here. Some students run through one quiz and they're ready to move on.
Yeah.
Kids get to pick their path, how they're going to arrive at learning and practice, and their pace, how long they're going to stay in those sections. Now, life has deadlines.
Right.
And in high school, deadlines are a part of what we're teaching them. These are real world skills. So yes, my unit has a deadline, but within that deadline, students can kind of decide how they budget their time.
So in this whole process, especially with the learn and practice part of the LPAD system, do you ever have a moment where you do whole class instruction?
Absolutely. There are some things, some concepts that just need to be old school, that just need to be me talking, whole instruction. And so certainly sometimes the learn phase is just that. And sometimes that's just an option. Some kids might be learning like, hey, I'll just read the notes and watch the video, but if you guys want me to talk you through it, I'm over here.
Okay.
So sometimes a class could be all whole instruction. I just decide we're just doing this together today.
Right.
This is the best way for me to deliver the information. Other times, maybe you guys want to do it your way. If you want me to do it old school, here I am.
Okay.
So there's options there.
That makes sense.
So there's learn and practice. And once students feel like they have mastered that, they feel good about it, the third step is apply. So this is where they take that surface level practice and start applying it to see if they can go beyond basic definitions to application. So here I provide various options depending on the unit or the skill so that they can start to synthesize the info in their writing, go beyond just recitation of information and really start putting it into original thought. This can look differently depending on the unit. For example, I might do something like, I call it step into my office, which is just my desk.
Yes.
Step into my office means, okay, you think you've learned and you've practiced, come see me. And this is where I start asking them questions. Yeah. And it's not just define this, but how do you use it and why and what's going on here and how's that relevant, and just a conversation. It's amazing what you can get so much more from a conversation than you can just with a paper and pencil multiple choice.
Yes.
So step into my office is maybe just a conversation, or maybe there's a written prompt and I want to see them right there working it with me, and then I can kind of guide them. An AVID strategy I use a lot is called connect the dots. This is a great way to apply. This simply means I'll give them 5 to 15 random terms, concepts, phrases from the unit and ask them to connect those in a cohesive paragraph.
Okay.
So just super random, pull out some buzzwords from the unit and now go with it and show me that you know how they intersect. And in a paragraph, it's really quite cool to see them because they really have to apply that knowledge. So connect the dots is super easy to do. Apply step, I might have them make a quiz or make a Quizlet set, something like that where they have to go beyond just the basics.
Yeah.
The last step in my little acronym is teach, because I really think that to teach something means that you have to really know it.
Yes.
And it also taps into that presentation skill in the English classroom, that you have to really kind of gather your ideas and speak from an organized and eloquent position. So it kind of checks a few boxes for me. It's a little presentation, it's application, and it's really deep knowledge. So here I require students to demonstrate their mastery by teaching the concepts either to me or to a peer while I listen, or a peer group, or sometimes to Roxy.
Aww.
You know, some students don't want to stand in front of me or stand in front of another student, and I'll say, cool, Roxy's over there. I'm listening.
She would like to know more about similes.
Yes, please tell her all about John Steinbeck.
Yes.
So anyways, I just want to get them up, speaking, organizing their thoughts, and showing off what they know.
Yeah.
And some kids love this step, and they want everybody's attention, like, hold on, time out.
Yeah.
You know, Steven is about to dazzle and amaze us, and they want that audience. Some say, I'm going to come after school.
Oh.
And I'm great. And some say, I'm going to sit over here and talk to my friend Savannah. You can listen.
Okay.
Great. Yeah. But to have those steps, learn it however you want to. Here are lots of ways. Practice it as many times as you need till you feel confident. Apply it, and then show me what you know.
Yes.
So it's a really kind of a cool way for students to know when we go into a unit, these are going to be the steps. Now, what's in those folders is different each time, depending on what you're teaching.
Right.
But that they have a roadmap.
Okay.
And they have those steps between learn and assess, which teaching is assessment.
Right.
That there are those two other steps where they're putting their hands on it and they're playing around with it and they have a chance to ask questions. So that's why I think it's something that makes sense for me.
Yeah, I think that that's really great, and it seems to connect. Well, let me ask you this: do you feel that it connects with your training and integration with like blended learning in your classroom? For those of you, I probably mentioned this in the intro, but just to also reiterate that Keri has been a blended learning teacher for several years now.
Absolutely, you know, blending the new tool, you know, with old-fashioned instruction with new tools and technology. I keep coming back to path and pace are my two big, benchmarks. When I personalize or blend, I start using the personalized learning is kind of where I've kind of evolved into. Instead of blended, I'm kind of thinking personalized, individual.
Gotcha.
But path and pace is really what I gravitate towards. That we can all arrive at the same understanding, but we don't have to get there on the same day.
Yeah.
And we don't have to get there through one set model.
Okay.
So that students can figure out what works for them. And like you said, from unit to unit, they can change their mind. You know, I want whole group instruction this time. You know, I want to sit with you.
Yeah.
Or I want to do it myself.
Right.
Or I want to read the notes, or I want to hear the notes, or in the teaching phase, maybe they want to just talk to me. Maybe they want to record a video at home when they feel more comfortable. So a blend of old school and new school with technology, set your own path and pace it out so you can be successful.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I want to go ahead and voice one of the many concerns that I am sure our teachers are having with this is, what do you do when students like I want to say stalemate, but I don't think that's right, where they like full stop, because you're giving them a lot of control over their pace and choice, and like you said, and I know from my experiences that seems to work out really well, but I'm so curious as to what you do when you see a student, he's either having a bad day or like a bad day turns into a bad couple of days and then a bad week. Like what's your fallback plan?
Yeah, it certainly happens. And just like in traditional, old, teaching, some kids are going to self-manage and excel, and some kids, personalizing or blending instruction doesn't change teaching the outcomes all the time. There's always been high flyers, and there's always been those who aren't going to push, and so that doesn't change. There's no magic bullet here. It's not it's gonna solve all your problems. But I do find that kids are more engaged when you give them choices and some autonomy in how they arrive at information. I do find that it engages students more than my old school kind of traditional model. But with that, when a kid sort of stalls out, this personalized model frees me up. I'm not at the front of the class running a 40-minute lecture like I may have been 6 years ago.
Right.
So now in that 50-minute class period, I can be sitting with that kid and say, hey, okay, where's your roadblock? Show me, okay, where are you? What's standing in your way?
Yeah.
And how can we fix it?
Right.
So it just gives me more opportunities. There's maybe 5 or 6 or 8 different things happening in the room, and I'm not at the front of the class the only person driving the action.
Yeah.
And so, and also I can get other kids like, hey, Steve, you finished that. Can you come over here and help George? Like, why don't you guys talk about it?
Yeah.
So it's just thinking of the classroom as 50 minutes of workspace as opposed to me just sage on the stage, and kids taking notes the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I like that idea that I can just sit down and be like, okay, cool. What's giving you trouble and how can I fix it?
Yeah.
What are we gonna do about it?
Right.
Goal setting and letting kids kind of figure out what works best for them is a really great skill for them to to process, and not everybody does it naturally. So for a kid like that, might just need some help, like, okay, our deadline is Friday, today's Tuesday, what do you want to accomplish today? How can we break what might seem like overwhelming to you in this moment? How can we break that down into manageable parts?
Yeah.
And then if the kid is part of that conversation, they're a little bit more empowered. Again, some kids are going to stall out, and that's the nature of humanity.
Right, it is.
This system is not 100% fail proof. But I do find that in the years that I've been doing it, that kids are more engaged. They're willing to help each other. It frees me up to sit down and be more one-on-one.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And one of the most exciting parts of it, the way that you've described this, is this seems like something that like literally any content area could use and kind of like tweak to be in their favor.
You can adjust it however you see fit. I really just kind of see that if you think of the T phase, the teach phase, as the test. Mm-hmm. Where do you place your test in your unit?
Okay.
So that would conclude your LPAD system.
Right.
You'd end at the test.
Yeah.
And you could do it. You could repeat that process multiple times, however you see fit.
Yeah. How long have you been using LPAD to your advantage?
I can't remember when I came up with this, but probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So through the process of using LPAD, like what are some benefits that you've seen, like as a teacher? You've described the process, but like how have you seen it help out your students? Have they said any comments, and how have you like felt it yourself? How has it made life easier?
Yeah, I think it makes my life easier, and at the same time enhances the students' experience, that freeing me up, that I'm not in that learn phase. There can be videos of me and my notes and everything that I would traditionally have done in a whole instruction situation, but I don't have to stand at the front of the room for 30 minutes to deliver it.
Yeah.
You can get it at home. You can pull it up on your computer and read it at home. You can listen to me talk at home. You could do it in class. You could do it anytime. You can still come and sit with me. Whole instruction is still available.
Right.
If you prefer that, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
But it's not the only way to get it. And so that frees me up, like I said, to be bumping around, the room and asking questions and checking in and facilitating their learning and their practice and their application, as opposed to exclusively driving the learn phase in the classroom. So it frees me up. It lets them, gives them more time with me, so that I can kind of check where we're strong, where we're not so strong, and recorrect. As for the students, like I said, I think the path and pace give them autonomy and choice and ownership, and they feel more in the driver's seat.
Right.
And I think that is important.
It is so important. I've been having you say that, and it rings such a bell inside of me, because I'm in the process of getting my master's right now, and it's blended. It's at KU, but it's partially online. And for the online parts, I thought I was gonna hate it. I thought I was like, I've always been a very much like, I need to be in person, and there are many times where I really wish I was in person. But wow, the like ability to do it like at my own pace and like in my own style has been very helpful.
It's so cool. And we've all taught a class where today we're talking about chapter 7.
Yeah.
And we're talking about it all hour. And sorry, but we're on chapter 7. And there's a kid at the back who's finished the novel.
Yeah.
They're bored. And there's a kid who hasn't started because he just transferred in.
Yes.
Sorry. I've scheduled the next 40 minutes to talk about chapter 7.
Yes.
So here it is, and so sorry, too bad.
Yeah.
So that opportunity, when you really build out your system, then the person who's finished can be running on those projects that are next and planning what to do for their teach phase.
Yeah.
The kid who needs chapter 1, great, read chapter 1. Let's talk about chapter 7 tomorrow. Get to it. So it creates an opportunity that everybody doesn't have to be on the same page every single day.
Yeah.
And I think it just shows that you value that people learn differently and think differently, and our lives are different at home. And if you're don't have a consistent home life, guess what, lady? Reading chapter 7 was not my priority last night.
Yeah.
I was taking care of my sister and cooking dinner, and I also had to work. Okay, no problem. We can handle that tomorrow. It frees students up to have some more autonomy and choice and options, and support from me on a one-on-one basis.
Yeah, and that seems like to mirror such like a much more real world situation, because I think most of the times as adults is that it's less about there are moments where you have these intense deadlines where like you better be ready by the specific moment, but there's a lot of times where you can, approach a meeting or approach like an ongoing project and be like, I have to do this tomorrow. I can't do it tonight. So that's exciting that you're building that skill.
Yeah, I think it's good for kids just to know that there are expectations on a daily basis, but not everybody learns the exact same thing on the exact same day in the exact same way.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. And like I said, it's just kind of like a roadmap. The kids know exactly what to expect.
Right.
They know, and after the first unit, they're like, cool, I'm ready to move on. Like, I did learn. Where's practice?
Yeah.
I'm ready to apply. Like they're telling me like, all right, lady,
Yeah.
But just that they know the steps and they get lots of repetitions. Brain research says we need 6 repetitions through anything to store in short-term memory.
Yeah.
And so with this, it forces those repetitions.
Yes.
I think it's easy to fall into, I taught it to you today, I'm testing you tomorrow.
Right.
And if you skip the practice and apply,
Yeah.
they're not getting their hands on it. They might know it tomorrow, but it's not stored in short term.
Right. Like it might be convenient for us for time to do that, but like in the long term, if they're not learning it for real, then maybe it doesn't matter.
Right.
We're doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's really exciting and super, super helpful. I really appreciate all of the fantastic conversation we've had today. So thank you so much for being on here, Keri. I really appreciate it. Both our conversations about Roxy and about the LPAD strategy have been incredibly, incredibly helpful. So I really appreciate you coming on.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for listening to the suggestion box. It means the world to me and to all the members of the Flint Hills Writing Project who helped put this podcast together. And thank you. We appreciate it. If the suggestion box is something you like, make sure you tell your friends, your family, your fellow teachers, your fellow students about it. We want to spread the word. Also, if you have the time, please make sure to subscribe to our podcast. Share it on social media. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Just search the Suggestion Box Podcast. And also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. It really helps spread the word. It helps us get our name out there. So anything that you can do to get one more person listening is really beneficial. Also, if you have a great idea, a unit, a lesson, a strategy, maybe you've got, a really unique part of your classroom that you are asking the question, just why aren't other people doing this? Or how can I get the word out? Email us. Email me at thesuggestionboxpodcast@gmail.com. I'm here for you. I want to get your ideas. I want to talk to you. Let's do this together. Special thank you, as always, to Dr. Heather and Roger Caswell, who are pushing forces behind this podcast every step of the way. Thank you so much to our terrific graphic designer, Kristen McGriff. She is so fantastic. You should check her out on her Instagram, which is, I believe, at Hey McGriff, for all of her wonderful designs. And thank you so much to Sonic Tonic Audio, who created the intro and outro music for our podcast. See you next time, teachers.